Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Zero Sugar Reviews. I'm your host, Sean, and today we will be doing another episode of my Worst Best series, where we take a band or artist and look at their studio albums from worst to best. Today we're going to be looking at Panic at the Disco, an American alternative band that I have a lot of history with, being one of the first groups that I got into on my own when I was a teenager. And today we're going to be looking at their studio albums from worst to best. So at the worst spot, we have Pray for the Wicked from 2018, probably to the surprise of few of you. Widely seen as a step down from previous releases by both fans and critics, this album would probably have been consigned to the dustbin of history without high hopes becoming a major hit for the group. The big theme of this album is turning the theatricality of previous albums up to 11, possibly due to Brendan's stint on Broadway and Kinky Boots, using a lot of Broadway staples in the sound of this record. Horns and strings mostly replace any guitars, and Brendon Urie is going for broke at every moment to the point it becomes a bit overwhelming. His admittedly incredible vocals do start to wear on the ear a bit. Songs like King of the Clouds and Old Fashioned are perfect examples of this. There are a few moments here that are enjoyable. One of the drunks keeps him in his lower range with a satisfying chopped vocal sample throughout the song, while the Overpass manages to find a way to incorporate some guitars into the album style without seeming to be too odd. I also have a soft spot for the closing ballad Dying in LA, even if it sounds like he hiccups in the chorus. In conclusion, this album feels like a misstep and a missed opportunity to find a way to inject theatricality back into Panic's sound. Number 6, Viva Las Vengeance. Shut Up and Go to Bed. The band's swan song effort lands here at the number 6 position. This is pretty much the album Pray for the Wicked should have been. A theatrical music production, but with more traditional rock instrumentation. The reason this still lands so low, then, is Brendan himself. He's stretching his voice to its absolute limits, and it can get to the point where it doesn't even sound good. Hell, on Don't Let the Light Go Out, he sounds like he's in physical pain on the chorus from straining to sing. Why is this album better? They're just better songs. The title track is one of the band's strongest singles in years, and its driving riff on both guitar and piano give it the feel of an older Panic song in the best way. I also like the attempt made at self-awareness on Sad Clown, even if that song does end with another over-singing bit. Do It to Death is a decent final note to go out on, and despite the improvements over the previous album, I still can't help but feel like Urie had the option to go out with more of a splash. Number 5, Death of a Bachelor. Death of a Bachelor has its warts, but overall, it's a fun and competent pop album that was Brendon Urie's first attempt at a solo album under the Panic at the Disco name. It's got some good party songs like Victorious and Don't Threaten Me with a Good Time that have a lot of energy and personality to them. I don't mind the pop sound on Panic at the Disco. I just mind when it feels like the personality's been sanded off. I felt that a lot more with our previous two albums, but here it really feels like there is a distinct energy to the album that Brendan is trying. Brendan writes a lot of his melodies really well here. Hallelujah, Crazy Equals Genius, LA Devotee. These songs are effortlessly catchy and really do capture the ear and the imagination. I'm not a fan of the slower songs in this record, with the title track Death of a Bachelor and the final song Impossible Year being my least favorite songs on the record. They're not terrible, but I do feel like they lack something that the other songs on the record have. Overall, Death of a Bachelor is a fine record. I would struggle to call it good or great, however. Number 4, Too Weird to Live, Too Rare to Die. When I think of Too Weird to Live, Too Rare to Die, the first word that pops into my mind is underrated. This album is incredibly underrated by Panic fans. It's known for its big singles like This Is Gospel and Girls, Girls, Boys, and while those songs are good, there's pretty much not a bad song on this album. The second half of this album is the most underrated stretch of Panic's career, with Casual Affair, Far Too Young to Die, and Collarful being 3 of my favorite Panic songs ever, all sandwiched together on the back half of this record. This is their final album as a band, and you can feel the synergy a little more. With 3 members, there's something about the songwriting that feels a little more complete. It's also the only album to feature Dallin Weekes on bass, and you can really feel his influence in the writing of some of these songs. Songs like Girl That You Love and Far Too Young to Die sound very similar to the sounds that Dallin would explore with his own band, I Don't Know How But They Found Me, years later. So it's kind of cool to come back here and see where that influence began. Overall, Two Where to Live, Two Where to Die is a good pop album, and it should be appreciated by a larger portion of the Panic fan base. Number 3, Pretty Odd. Pretty Odd is a 60s inspired album with influence from bands like the Beatles, the Kinks, and the Zombies. I admit I had a very hard time deciding between this and the number 2 album on the list, and the reason this one lands lower is just how long it is. There's 15 songs on the standard edition of this album, and there are a few tracks that begin to feel like filler, like I Have Friends in Holy Spaces or From a Mountain in the Middle of the Cabins. I do really think that the band commits to the 60s aesthetic well, with Ryan Ross's writing becoming a lot more Flower Child-like. I also like the duets on this album. In She Had the World and Mad as Rabbits, where Ryan Ross gets a chance to sing as well as write. Ryan Ross doesn't have the most traditionally good-sounding voice, but he has a voice that complements Brendan's well, and when they go back and forth together, it's a lot of fun. It's even fun when he gets a song to lead himself on Behind the Sea, Pretty Odd is a strong album, and it's a strong summer album. It's one of my favorite albums to drive around to in the summer with the windows down. At number 2, we have Vices and Virtues. Again, the main reason that this lands at number 2 is the brevity. 10 songs, and they're all pretty tight. Only Let's Kill Tonight really falters for me, in my opinion. It wasn't included in the rankings, but I do want to mention that the B-sides from this era are also fantastic and should be experienced. Vices and Virtues is a tight pop album. With just Brendan Urie and Spencer Smith in the band at this point, they crafted 10 songs, 9 of which I really like. And Brendan's songwriting is actually really good here, showing that he can write good songs. Memories is the tale of a struggling couple from beginning to end. The Ballad of Mona Lisa, not exactly sure what it's supposed to be about, but it invokes a strong image. In Nearly Witches, in which he finds so many interesting ways to describe this infatuation he's feeling with this woman ever since they met. Overall, Vices and Virtues is a strong album, and it's a strong listen any day of the week. And at number 1, we have A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, the band's debut record from 2005. And I admit that this is a choice mainly motivated by nostalgia. It's not Too Weird to Live, sorry. A Fever You Can't Sweat Out is one of the first albums I remember loving when I was a teenager, discovering music of my own for the first time outside of my parents' CD collection. I was shown this by a friend in the 6th grade, the music video for I Write Sins Not Tragedies, and I was hooked from there. I bought the whole album, and I listened to it non-stop for over a year. And I've still never gotten sick of this record, even after all these years. It's got excellent songwriting from Ryan Ross. Cam Masato and Nails for Breakfast and Tacks for Snacks talk about his experiences with his father in the hospital. He also writes character songs, like on Time to Dance, I Constantly Thank God for Esteban, and Build God, Then We'll Talk, in which he paints very realistic portraits of 3-dimensional people going through 3-dimensional struggles. He's a really talented songwriter, and it's a shame that we only have the first 2 Panic albums to show that off. I almost wish the Young Vanes, his side band, had gone on longer so we could have experienced more of his songwriting. I also really like the distinct visual aesthetic that this era has with it. The kind of circus or cabaret feel that the whole record has, especially if you look at pictures or concert footage from this era. overall, it's just a strong album. The guitars roar in the first half and the horns blare in the second half, but no matter what, it's held down by strong melodies, strong, energetic singing from Brendan, and strong writing from Ryan Ross, and that's why it's my favorite. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. Comment down below your favorite Panic at the Disco album, song, or other related Panic thing. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you all have a great day. Zero Sugar Reviews, signing off.